How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. Sort of on YouTube. I don't really know. We don't really get much play there. Let's see if Facebook tonight, if they relent and actually let us get some reach tonight. We've been getting screwed by them all week, for the past couple of weeks actually, where they've eliminated our reach and we're not reaching out and actually getting the views that we were getting a week ago. I guess we got too big. 20,000 views a show, and all of a sudden, boom, it got capped. So listen, again, it doesn't matter. It's really up to you guys, and it's really up to us to spread this word. I talked about this show today when I hosted the David Webb Show, and well, let's see how many people join us tonight. And we're going to do the Friday night toast. And there's a good amount of stuff to talk about, but I'm not going to keep you here all Friday. We're going to have a little discussion about some things, and we're going to have our toast, and we're going to go on about our happy merry way. Let's do this. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, I'm still getting this whole process that I kind of redid down to a science here, and I'm looking at the chats. We got a lot. We actually got more people than normal on Twitter. Facebook, come on, we got to get the shares up. People got to start sharing. You got to start telling people about this show. On Twitter, you got to retweet it. On Facebook, you got to share it. Let's get those numbers up. Make sure that you have a beverage with you so we can do the toast. As you can see, I forgot to get Corona Light, my favorite. I only had one left, so this is going to be half a toast for me tonight. But, you know, it is what it is. And I got my CQRF coffee mug, which I know the people that want to make these, I keep telling you I'm going to call you, and I keep getting busy. We'll get there, though. I will get to you. Now, before I even get started in what I believe is going to be a short but very passionate discussion tonight, I want to show you, you may have seen it on my page if you follow me, you may have already seen that I got to meet a special guest today when I was at SiriusXM. I hope Barry Morgenstein is watching this. Let me text him real quick because I want him to see, I want him to hear this story about meeting this guy today. I'll tell you what his name is after I introduce him basically on the video. And let me ask Barry if he's watching. And so very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and show you the video. It's an amazing video, and you'll see it was right after a big speech today. And let's go to the video soundbite, and then I'll explain this to you in a minute. Hey, this is Jonathan Gillum. I just got through hosting the David Webb Show on SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125, and you're never going to guess who I ran into here. You never know who you're going to run into here on the set at Sirius. But, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
I love the Patriot Channel because I love Patriots. They're unbelievable. Tom Brady and the SEALs.
That's right.
The SEALs. They're great. They swim. They do air things. They do land stuff. And I love them at the zoo. They're my favorite animals at the zoo. I think they're the best, to be honest, at the zoo. So I love America. Love the SEALs. Make America great again.
And we love you, President Trump.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Big time too.
So his name is, I want to make sure that I get it right. His name is J.L. Calvin, C-A-U-V-I-N. And here's the crazy story about this. So I hope Barry is watching. Barry Morgenstein, we're friends on Facebook, and Barry had a video of this guy where he's doing different Trump impersonations because Barry did his photos for him. And I guess I could put that up here because it's pretty. Actually, I don't have the ability to put it up here unless I pulled it up on here maybe. All right, I'll see if I can do that in a second. Maybe we'll end with that. So, never seen JL before, never heard of him before, and so Barry was doing a photo shoot with him, and he has him do the three different Trumps. He does the rally Trump, the teleprompter Trump, and the interview Trump, and it's absolutely hilarious. So we're and I kid you not, I'm sitting there in the studio with Edwin and Anthony, the two producers of the show, and we're all in this little room together where we sit now and we do David Webb Show. So we're sitting there, and Trump was on television. We played a few minutes of his speech, and I pull my phone up, and I said, "You guys have got to see this guy that does the Trump impersonations." Now, remember, I've never met JL before. I just saw this video that was on Barry Morgenstein's web page or his Facebook page. So I pull up the video and I show it to him while we're at break. And so they're looking at this video, okay? The video ends. I clear my phone to get ready for the show to start back. I look up, and this guy walks by the studio. I mean, sometimes you realize how small the world is. I meant to load this picture before I started. And it's weird, really weird. I know there's a reason why I meant to tell you all this, because let me load this picture real quick. Because yesterday I was getting ready to go to bed, and you know me, I don't go to sleep until late, even though I had to get up early and host David Webb's show. I just did not get in the bed. Oh, I got to go down here. Okay, I didn't get in the bed early, so I was sitting here playing Flight Simulator and whatever else I do when I am like a child struggling not to go to sleep. It's terrible the way I am when it comes to sleeping now as an adult. So sitting here tuning around, getting ready to do my audiobook, playing Flight Simulator, trying to get myself relaxed by stimulating my eyes. And there was a video. You know how you get sucked into these videos on Facebook? This video came up, and it talked about how small the universe actually is, and how big the universe is, and how small our planet and the area that we've actually reached into space. And it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal how big the universe is, and we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. So I saw this picture. Let me pull this picture up here real quick. I have to format it first. So let's see here. Stand by. Okay. So if you see in this picture, actually I probably should put it up on this screen, on the screen behind me. When you see this picture, you see a ray of light coming down on your screen, and you're going to see a little bitty dot in that picture. That dot is Earth, and this picture is the furthest away any picture of Earth has ever been taken, and it was taken by Voyager, one of the Voyager spacecrafts. And this is millions and millions and millions of miles away. And I'm going to leave this picture up while I explain this. They were doing the narrating about this picture and how profound this picture actually is, because when you look at the size of the universe, and then you look at this picture and how small our planet actually is. Carl Sagan was quoted. I'm not going to say the exact quote, but basically in a nutshell, this is what he said. And now think about this, folks. Everyone that has ever been born, and every human that has ever died, everything that we know on this earth, every animal, every murderer, every dictator, every saint, every grandma, grandpa, brother, sister, mom, dad, every tree that we've ever known, everything that has ever happened in the history of mankind has happened on that little dot right there. Now that should make you pause. And when I heard that, I literally stopped what I was doing, and I went back a couple minutes and replayed this whole thing. And I just thought about that, and this was yesterday, and I thought about how incredibly wild that thought actually is. It makes you realize how special you are in God's eyes. This universe is so vast that they put it to us this way: the visible universe that we can actually see, that we have actually seen, is compared to the rest of the potential universe. When they do calculations, you know how these people are, these brainiacs, how they do these calculations. So they believe, based on the calculations of how the visible universe is spreading, and if you don't know this, the universe is moving outwards, and different things are going at different speeds, because I took astronomy in college, and the different galaxies and planets and all these things, they're moving at different speeds relative to where they were in the Big Bang. Now, is the Big Bang a lie? I don't know. I don't really care about it. But who's to say God didn't make a Big Bang happen, and that's how he created everything? That's how he started it. I don't know. But it's interesting the way stuff is all moving away. But anyway, it's a whole nother story. But the visible universe that we can see, if you put it into a ratio, and you took the planet of Pluto, or planet, not a planet, whatever they call it today, and you took a light bulb, that light bulb represents the universe that we have seen, the known universe. Beyond us, they if you were to do the ratio from the light bulb, it would be the what they perceive to be the rest of the universe would be about the size of the planet of Pluto, which is a big planet, right? That's pretty phenomenal. And they said that the planets or in the solar systems and the galaxies and all these things are moving at such a rate of speed, and they're so far away that mankind will never be able to see the light from those objects moving away from us because they're moving faster than the light can travel to our planet. So we'll never see them. No matter what, we'll never see them. So it really makes you think, when I'm going to put that back up for a second, when we look at this tiny dot that is our planet, where everything that has ever happened to a human being, that a human being has ever been involved with, has happened right there. Right there. Nowhere else. That's it. And when you look at the vastness of space and the vastness of the universe, it makes you realize there's something special going on here. There's something special. So when I saw, I know this, I'm going way out of talking about when this guy, this JL, I just forgot his name again, how to say it, JL Calvin, Cauvin, when he walked by today, that thought just popped into my head. I've never met the guy before. I didn't even know who he was until I saw his video on Barry Morgenstein's Facebook page a couple months ago. I'm showing the other guys this video. I put the phone down, look up. I'm not kidding you. He was walking right by. Now, either this JL guy is some kind of ghost or some kind of psychic entity, or the world is just that small that we live in. We think it's big, but it's really small. And that is amazing when you think about it. It's amazing because now as I talk about politics and media and the things that we cover on a nightly basis, doesn't it make you think that we waste way too much time on this nonsense when obviously we have something special to do? If in all the universe that you look around and all there is this one tiny little dot in the middle of nowhere, in all of the known universe, this is the only species of living creatures, any living creatures that we've ever found. And if I was to get the picture of the map that they have of the known universe, we haven't even scratched the surface of communications outside of, if you were talking about your where you live, it would be like you haven't even gotten out of the bathroom yet. We are here for a reason, a special reason. And it reminds me of boot camp. I went through officer candidate school. Some people went through boot camp, and then I went through SEAL training. I like to talk about SEAL training because that's where the real test came. There were people that dropped out or were kicked out of officer candidate school, no doubt about it. But in SEAL training, you're looking at a more or less a 15 to 25% success rate. So that means 75 or more percent dropout. There was even a class they called the class that never was, where nobody graduated from that class. So it's the real test. What's interesting, what I learned about SEAL training, and I just told this young man who's going in the Marine Corps about this, is that when you go there, everybody's going to think that they're going through the worst pain ever, but the guy next to you and the woman over there, they're going through the same pain as well. They're going through the same obstacles. They're being tested the same way. They're being expected to do the same work, but yet everybody feels like, oh no, this is all on me. I'm the one who's suffering. But they're all suffering, and they're all being broken down so they can be built back up. And what's interesting about SEAL training, and boot camp for that matter, is that, and really medical school or any of these other, law school, any of these other trainings that you go through, maybe you're an apprentice with somebody, but I'm talking about SEAL training because that's what I know. So ultimately, when you finish SEAL training, you go through BUDS. Now they go through SQT. When I was there, it was called STT, SEAL Tactical Training. Now it's SEAL Qualifying Training. Even when you get through that, you have the ability and you have the skill set. You've been taught the skill set. You've been really, what you've done is you've proven, especially in buds where the majority of people are weeded out, you've proven that you can be taught. You're proven that you can be trusted, and you've proven that you won't quit. Other than that, when you go through buds, you learn a foundation of skills, but you're not really a SEAL when you graduate buds. You have a lot more learning to do and a long ways to go in proving yourself being a competent operator. And I look at life very similar in the same way. When we look at this universe and we look how small we are at this planet, where every single thing that has ever happened to a human being has happened in this little space, that little bitty dot right there in the universe. It's just that one place. Every person that's ever lived, every person that's buried is on that dot. That's crazy when you think about it. And this life, we all go through the same thing. We all feel pain. We all see death. We're all born. We all see birth. We are all hungry. I don't care if you're rich. You will be hungry sometimes. You will feel heartache. You will feel loneliness. You will feel success and failure, unless you're some kind of psychopath or narcissist who lies to yourself constantly and says, no, I'm never failing. You're going to fail. In fact, the more successful you are, the more likely you are that you will have failed multiple times. In fact, if you're not failing, you're really not succeeding. Whole nother story. But when you die on this earth, and trust me, you will die. 100% of all living creatures die. When you die, what do you take with you to the grave? You can prove that you can be trusted. You can prove that you can be trained. You can prove that you won't quit. Faith is the hardest thing. In the days of the Old Testament, there was you had to pay a price for sin. You had to sacrifice grain or sacrifice flesh in order to pay for your sin. Now that sacrifice was paid by Jesus, and now it's faith that you have to have. Faith is way harder than farming so you can grow some seeds and then sacrifice them, or kill a pig that you've been wanting to cook for yourself and you have to sacrifice that. Faith in something that is unseen for the most part. It's a small voice in your, guiding you, but for the most part, it's not physical in the way that we look at this cup right here. At least that's not the way we perceive it. But faith is so difficult. And it's amazing when you think about what have you done in this life when you end up at the end. You have proven. Can you be trained? Can you be trusted? And will you not quit? It's just like boot camp. Just like boot camp. And I remember going through one thing that we did in my platoon. I don't know if other platoons did this, but my platoon, when I was in the SEAL teams, before we deployed and started doing all these little FID missions and stuff that we were doing, they took us and we went to an autopsy. And we saw a woman who had been dead for 3 days, and they did an autopsy on her. And it was fascinating. Because, and I'm going to get around to the headlines here in a minute, and I'll tell you why I'm talking about this. When I watched them cut this woman open, I just happened at that same time. See, these coincidences are always happening to me. I'm sure they happen to other people. It's just that I have always had this ability when something happens to stop, and I ask the question, why did that just happen? How many people that are watching the show right now have ever been talking, the TV's on in the background, and you say, well, that's crazy, and somebody on TV says crazy at the same time you, or you say some other word and they say it at the same time as you, and those are weird coincidences. It happens all the time, and whenever I see that happening, I'm like, what's being taught to me right now? What should I notice? Am I just being shaken to be woken up? Well, when we went to this autopsy, at that point in time, I was in Virginia Beach, and I was building a Jeep. I'm a big Jeep guy. So I was building this Jeep, and I was lifting it and doing all this stuff. And I took the engine and the transmission out of this Jeep. And anybody's ever worked on a vehicle, there's these orange cranes. They're about this big, and you wheel it over to the front of the vehicle. You take the chain and you attach it to a couple things on the engine. You make sure that underneath the engine, where the engine attaches to the frame, that you unhook those bolts. Then you unhook where the transmission is, and you start cranking this thing. And you also have to disconnect all the different hoses and stuff. And then as you crank this thing, this big orange crane, you pull the engine and transmission out. It kind of comes out at an angle, and then it's hanging by this chain, and you wheel it away. And then you put the same one back in the same way. So I'm sitting here watching this, and I remember looking at my Jeep when I was doing this, and I had the hood all the way back on the Jeep, and I took the engine transmission out, and I just sat there looking at this going, wow, this is kind of interesting. Kind of looks like a human body with no internal organs, you know. You got your fluids that come through here. You got your fuel that goes through there. You know, you have your the fluids to keep you hydrated, you know, all these different electrical system. The whole thing, you could see all that, and you could see where the engine went in there, the actual components that make this vehicle go. I'm watching this autopsy, and they cut here and here and here, and they fold it open. I watched the doctor reach under all the organs, which are held in a bag, basically. It's like a fleshy bag that all the organs are inside. And he reaches under and he pulls that bag up, and he makes a couple incisions to release that bag where it's attached to the torso. And I'm sitting here remembering, when I reached in my Jeep, I had to reach down there and make sure that it was disconnected from the frame when I was taking that engine out. This doctor reached under there. It looked exactly like what I did with the Jeep. He then wheels over this small version, and I'm not lying here. He wheels over a small version of the same crane that I had used for my Jeep, except that crane was like this high. The crane that he used was about that big. Shaped the same color, everything. Even had a little crank on it, just same thing. He wheels it over, he pulls it over there. He takes this mesh thing and he scoots it under and brings it out the other side where all the insides are now sitting in this mesh bag. And he hooks that to this crane, and he makes sure the veins and all that, you know, the doctor knows what he's doing. He's disconnecting all this stuff. And he starts cranking this thing, and he pulls the whole internal organ bag out. I don't know what this stuff's called, not a doctor. He wheels it over, and he sets it down over there. If you could only imagine, I'm sitting there, and I know I'm laughing. It's partly Dante's humor, but I get amazed by these things in life when they happen. And I'm sitting here looking at this, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, the God that created all the universe has been teaching me a lesson all week when I was taking this Jeep apart and working on it and doing all these things and recognizing these things as I was taking this engine out and disconnecting bolts and lifting it out. I was consciously aware of the steps that I was taking. And now I'm sitting here watching this doctor pull these organs out of this woman using the same crane, leaving this empty torso. I'm like looking at it because we're like right there. And I'm looking down and I'm like looking at an electrical system. You can see the nerves, the spinal cord. You can see that. I'm looking at the veins where the fuel is carried. I'm looking at the lubrication, all the fluids that are in there. I was amazed, shocked. And I took some real time after that to reflect on how human beings tend to replicate what they intrinsically know. That's why it's so interesting when I see atheists bitch and complain and argue until they're out of breath that there is no God. When in fact, if there wasn't a God, they would not be compelled to argue that there wasn't. They're compelled by an intrinsic internal disconnect that they've had, whereas everybody's driven to know God. They've had something tragic happen in their lives where they're trying their hardest to break that contact subconsciously, and they cannot deny the instinctual knowledge that there is a God, and that's why they argue so hard, trying to prove to us that it's not there. That very argument means, in my mind, that he is there. So I go back and I start reflecting. Human beings intrinsically do things that they do things that they intrinsically know. They invented a vehicle. It was exactly like a human body. It's so unbelievably like that. I started thinking about boot camp and BUD/S, SEAL training, and I thought, man, it's exactly like life. Basically in life, there's nothing that you can do to prolong your life forever. Everything you accomplish will be left here. You will leave it all. You're not taking any of it with you. And the same thing goes in BUD/S. You only take the foundation of who you are. From what I can tell, from what I read and what I believe, is that when you die, the only thing that goes with you is who you are. Not what you are, not what you have, not what you've acquired or proven or the legacy that you leave. That's all here. But ultimately, when I look and studied religions and looked at all these things, it's very clear to me that we are here to prove that we can follow orders and directions and decipher our own voice from that small, still voice. It became clear to me that there is a set protocol for the things that we will feel. Some people will feel it much more tragically. Maybe they're being prepared for something in a different way. Things that don't make sense, like the killings that happened in Las Vegas. Ultimately, it will mean something. I remember in BUD/S going through all this stuff and watching people crumble. I remember one night they would make us, this is in Hell Week, they would make us dig holes big enough. I mean, these holes would be like 5 feet deep, giant holes with our paddles in the sand. We'd have to bury our boats, and then they would make us dig them back up. And then they'd make us go get wet and do some other stuff, and then bury those boats again. And this was going on for hours. And they were beating us in the meantime, making us do push-ups and all this stuff. And they kept telling us, because they saw a weakness in one of the guys who was the nicest guy. I don't remember his name. Nicest guy in the world. And another classmate of mine is awesome guy. I'm not going to say his name here, but awesome guy. And this other guy that was really nice wasn't cut out for the program. He just wasn't. And he would, it's not that he couldn't run. It's just that you could just tell that it just wasn't there. It wasn't for him. That type of training is not for everybody. And they kept saying, if he quits, they said, this guy right here, if that guy quits, then we are going to stop this evolution. But we will not stop it until he quits. And it was becoming very painful. Guys were having hands that were bleeding because we'd literally been digging holes for hours with these paddles, and we hadn't slept in days. And they saw a break in him. They saw that he was looking for a way out. They could see this. I couldn't see it. I remember my other buddy pulling me aside and saying, listen, you got to let that guy rise or fail on his own. Because I was sitting there, I'm a helper. I was sitting there trying to get him motivated, get him to go. And he said, no, listen, they're doing this. And this is a huge lesson for me. They're doing this to him because he's got to rise or fail on his own. And I think they had a good feeling that he was not going to make it. So, they kept saying, if you quit, they'll stop suffering. It's on you. If you care about them, quit. Just quit. We'll have donuts and coffee, and you'll be able to ring out, and we'll stop messing with you. But we're going to continue to pound everyone until you quit. And I remember looking at him saying, don't do it, man. Don't do it. I am here to suffer. I'm not afraid of suffering. Don't quit. And he took the out. And he quit. We were all going through the same pain, but he decided to quit. And those of us that didn't, we looked inside our souls. We saw what we were, and we were not happy with that, and we rose above it. Everybody, when you peel your soul back, you're a weak individual. Nobody, I don't care who they are. when you pull back your soul and you look at it, you are not going to be somebody that says, I'm so excited about who I am. You're going to be crushed and you're going to be afraid, because the persona that you perceive that you are, the strength that you have, they'll crush it in buds. Trust me on that one. And life will crush you as well. So, after seeing this autopsy and building this Jeep and all these things were so similar, I started looking at life. I saw how similar it was to boot camp and buds and all around the world, the military training and any specialty training. It's very similar. You take people there, you make them prove go through a set standard of obstacles, ups and downs, emotional failures and successes, and to see if they'll rise to the occasion or if they'll choose to quit. It's every single thing that you go through that teaches a skill, you'll go through that. That's major. And they're teaching you the foundations, and they're seeing if you'll quit. They're seeing, or won't quit. They'll see if you can be trained and if you can be trusted. And at the end of buds, we graduated, and I remember sitting there thinking to myself that day that I really didn't know as much as I thought I was going to know when I graduated buds. I knew what I was capable of. I'll tell you that. I knew the reality of how far a human being can go when something's broken on them. I knew that the mind is much stronger than the will of the body. And the body is much stronger than you would ever think. You're capable of surviving unbelievable stress and trauma and continuing to move forward. But the skill set was limited, to be honest with you. But that came later, afterwards. After we graduated that's where we started being given the tools, the tactics, techniques, and the procedures. We were given the secrets. We were given the missions to plan ourselves based on the things that we've been taught. And what I started to see was that life was the exact same way. I personally am a Christian. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. I believe in the sacrifice. It makes sense to me. I study all religions. It makes sense to me. And I also believe, based on my training experience, my investigative mind, and what I've read in the Bible, that we will die on this earth. Everybody will die. You will live on this small planet right here, that little bitty thing that's sitting there in the middle of nowhere by itself, where every human that's ever been born and every human that's ever died and every good and every bad thing that's ever occurred in the history of mankind is on that little dot. And I realized that when I die, there's only going to be a finite set of things that I can take with me, and that's, can I be trusted? After what God went through with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and with Satan and all these fallen angels and all these backstabbers throughout history, we're here suffering so we can prove whether or not we can be trusted. We're being proved, we're being tested to see if we can be trained and retain things. This is wrong and this is right. If you listen closely, I'll show you the way. We're being tested. And we're also being tested to see if we'll quit. Like the atheist, like the communist, like the people who want to shun God and shun goodness, and they want to shun freedom, and they want to force people to be a certain way. They have stepped completely out of the realm of godly thought. Now, where am I going with this in this whole explanation that I've been doing now for 40 minutes? Well, when we look at the news cycle, which I talked about today on the David Webb Show. When we look at the news cycle, and we see in here that, for instance, let me see if we can even see this if I bring it up here, that the FBI, this is what it says right here, you can't really see it, but this is on foxnews.com. The FBI has found the Clinton Lynch tarmac documents. They just appeared, right? Scandalous. When we look at something that I'm going to play you a video in just a second of Hillary Clinton. it's going to start to make sense to you that this stuff is babble, that this stuff is nonsense. That what I talked about yesterday about Linda Loomis or Loomer, whatever her name is, Laura Loomis, that's who it is. The nonsense that people like that spew when they try to make you believe that they're conservative. She may be conservative, but nonsense to report stuff instead of just telling the truth. Saying I don't really know what's going on in this investigation. Much like you, she'll go on and she'll report stuff that she knows nothing about. Same thing with CNN. Same thing with MSNBC. It happens at Fox, the New York Times, the Washington Post. AOL.com. It happens in every news source. The salacious, shiny thing. Let me feed it to you, show it to you, so you will be engrossed with that, not realizing that there's really nothing going on here other than criminals and psychopaths that are trying to lead you astray. That's it. Sorry, losing my voice a little. I kept thinking as I'm seeing all this stuff and reflecting on all this stuff, and I talked about today on the show, we cannot get caught up in the emotion of division. You can't get caught up in the emotion of being liberal and conservative. You can't get caught up in the color of your skin, which is the stupidest thing ever. You cannot, listen, if your hatred is based on the color of skin, it's ridiculously stupid. However, if you want to be divided, you have light skin or you have dark skin, there's no difference. If you want to be divided and you want people to notice you and say and notice the color of your skin first before your actions, you have just as big of a problem as the person who wants to hate because of the color of skin. But yet when we turn the news on, it's all division all the time. Black Lives Matter, communist group, does nothing to help anybody bridge these gaps for stupid things like judging people on the color of skin. When you look at Antifa, whose hammer and sickle is a communist symbol, and they say we hate fascists. I don't know if they realize that communism, almost every single communist country has eventually been led by a fascist. They try to give this a name and that a name, and the reality is what they believe in is opposite of what we have here in the United States, which is freedom and the ability to succeed or fail based on your abilities, based on your ability to develop other abilities, based on your dedication to your skill set and learning your skill set. It was Will Smith, I think, that said that we have to differentiate between talent, which you're born with, and skill, which you have to develop. These people don't realize that's what's great about this country is you have the freedom to develop that. Work on your talent, develop your skill set, be the best that you can be. But we get inundated on a daily basis to the point where we are no different than drug addicts. We can't go a day without having an argument. We can't go a day without having some type of opinion about some salacious thing that somebody said or done. And that's going to continue. That's the 24-hour news cycle. They make things up into something that they're not. And so, I guess on this Friday, what I want to leave, I'm not turning the show off yet, but what I want you to think about, folks, is that this stuff is not what you're going to take with you. If you're allowing the attitudes of a special interest group to formulate the hate inside of you or the way you judge people, you've got to stop. If you wake up and you read the news and you are so furious, you've got to stop. If you are liberal and you cannot have a conversation and admit that Donald Trump has done some good things, and you get so furious that you can't, I just don't want to talk about it, you got to stop. On the other hand, if you're conservative and you can't allow somebody else to say, well, I don't agree with this that Donald Trump did, you got to stop. you need to develop who you are. If everybody on this earth was fully developing who they could be, and that was their focus, we would be casting aside these weirdos in Hollywood and in politics and the big money people who were, screwing us over left and right. You wouldn't have time for those people, and they would not be able to excel because they wouldn't be able to manipulate you. Communism is ultimately a manipulation of the people. That's what it ultimately is. It's like Satan's, if I could ever pin Satan down on any type of chosen government that he could have, it would be the lie of communism. Tomorrow we're going to wrap this all up where you're not going to have this centralized dictator. We're going to let that go just a little bit longer so we can fix that. Just a little bit longer, and maybe in a year you'll be able to be a one synthesized group where everybody can work together and help each other out. Just a little bit longer. No, you need to shut your mouth, and then that person disappears. Or they threaten people. Don't talk against us. We'll kill you. That's ultimately what communism is. But what's even worse than communism is the way we live here in the United States, where we have this freedom and we neglect it, and we basically become slaves to the lying politicians, big money people in Hollywood, where we're like a 5-year-old when they're screaming and crying, and you hand them an iPad so they can watch some cartoon. All of a sudden they just shut up until they want something else and they start crying again. We're not much different as a population in this world. So that's where I'm going with this. As I look at all these headlines, and I pull these headlines up, and I look at the, whether it be the lies again, that all of a sudden these documents that the FBI they lost them. I was in the FBI for 8 years here in New York. You don't lose documents. I never lost one document the entire time. In fact, it's duplicated and triplicated. You don't lose documents in the FBI. I've never heard of it. The only time I've ever heard of files missing was because new agents were coming in and the supervisor was putting them up in the ceiling because he didn't want to go through and rate their files and do that stuff because it was a lot of work. Those are files that get lost. They're not really lost. They're just put somewhere, and then people lie and say they don't know where they are. Big difference. So we don't even have to go into that story. It's a lie. It's a lie. I don't have to go into that story. You bring it up, FBI has found Clinton Lynch tarmac meeting documents. Watchdog group. Judicial Watch does an amazing job, by the way. But this is a lie. Yes, it's going to be a scandal, and it should be, because it's based on a lie. These people are lying. I'm going to give the New York Times an attaboy. The New York Times has gone and says they're going to impose a new policy. Now, whether or not this communist paper, which they've always been connected since their beginning, somewhat with communist leanings, I know I use that word a lot, but it's true if you research this stuff. The New York Times imposes a new policy to hide reporters' liberal bias. Now, they're saying to hide. Perhaps it's to make the paper look better, but I do have to give it to, I think it puts people in check. Okay, what they're doing is they're saying if you have very liberal ways, or you're communist, or you basically you cannot go on to social media and say things. If you work for the New York Times, you can't go on and accuse other people or belittle people if this is what I'm gaining, this is what I'm understanding. Maybe I'm wrong, but what I understood from this policy is if you can't prove it, you can't put it on social media. I mean, if that is the case, then I give them an attaboy. If I'm reading this wrong, then shame on me. And not that I think the New York Times is changing, but maybe they screwed up and did it right this time. I don't know. I'll give them an attaboy for now, and then we'll see how this works out. I find it very interesting that the Las Vegas security guard has vanished all of a sudden. He skipped out on Sean Hannity yesterday. He has dissed a bunch of other interviews and is nowhere to be found. Now, I don't know. Maybe his union is doing something. Maybe they're protecting him from lawsuits. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate and say that, oh, the FBI got to him and they have threatened him. You know, the FBI is keeping him in hiding. FBI, unless the guy has got something that is so dangerous, knowledge it's so dangerous that they have to hide him, the FBI is not hiding this guy. Okay? So, and they're not silencing the guy either. They would have to get a judge to basically shut this guy up. The FBI can't just shut somebody up. They got to get a judge to do that. And I've never heard of that. So unless they're actually in a case or in a trial. Those are some of the headlines. Harvey Weinstein is still huge in the news, as well he should be, but not huge from the people. Let's take a listen. Now, again, I'm making this transition very quickly, but you see where I'm going with this. If you put the emotions to the side, if you stop getting all wrapped up in the color of the skin and sexuality and gender, all these divisive things that you're being told is a problem in this country, and the liberals are bad or the conservatives are bad, if you just put that stuff to the side and you just look at these stories, you're going to see that the majority of these stories are about as thin as a piece of paper, and there's not much to them. I want to play this video for you. And you're going to see the reality, which you probably know already, in which these people use this type of emotional baggage that you've been indoctrinated with. This is how they pump it out. So yes, I know it's hard to look at, but let's pull her up. Okay, let's just do this.
I was shocked and appalled because I've known him through politics, as many Democrats have. He's been a supporter. Yeah. He's been a funder.
Wait, hold on a second.
For all of us, for Obama.
Let me put this. I forgot to plug this in. Hold on.
Me, for people who've run. And appalled because I've known him through politics, as many Democrats have. He's been.
Now she's talking about Harvey Weinstein. Okay. Talk about Harvey Weinstein, who is now being accused of serial rape, serial sexual harassment. I've said before, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not accusing me of it, but I'm not going to be surprised if pedophilia pops up there, or it's pedophilia or sex with a minor or something like that. So that's who she started off talking about. And this is on the BBC. This isn't an American news station.
A supporter. Yeah. He's been a funder, and, you know, for all of us, for Obama, for me, for people who've run for, for office in the United States. So it was just disgusting, and the stories that have come out are heartbreaking. And I really commend the women who have been willing to step forward now and tell their stories. But I think it's important that we not just focus on him and whatever consequences flow from these stories about him.
Okay, you got to hear this. Listen closely. She's talking about Harvey Weinstein, who's now being accused of being a serial rapist, a serial sexual harasser, an overall bad guy, a bully, a psychopath, it sounds like, living in a world where everybody knew this was going on and nobody did anything about it. The fact that he ruined careers or was threatening to ruin careers, and the fact that he runs in a circle with this individual right here. He runs in a circle where there's been rumors, the same rumors about her husband, the same rumors about pedophilia and about murder and about all these different things. And everybody always just says, no, you don't have any facts on that. Let's not bring it up. Let's not even look at it. You're wrong. We're going to censor you for saying something about it. Same thing was going on with Harvey Weinstein. They run in the same circles as Harvey Weinstein. And it was all true about Harvey Weinstein. So listen what she does here when she shifts fire. Because, again, if you take away the emotional stuff, if you take away all this divisiveness, if you take away all the judgment stuff and you start listening to these stories, what you're going to see is that the truth falls right out the bottom. And all of a sudden it becomes visible. The narratives become visible. The facts become visible. The players become visible. So she started off talking about Harvey Weinstein. Watch this transition.
Behavior. but that we recognize this kind of behavior cannot be tolerated anywhere, whether it's in entertainment, politics.
Well,
you know, after all, we have someone admitting to being a sexual assaulter in the Oval Office. There has to be a recognition that we must stand against this.
She's alleging with a foreign network that our president has admitted to being a serial molester. Now, those words never came out of his mouth. I tried to zoom in on the video. Somebody's asking. I tried. It won't let me. Yeah, they've done something here. Oh, wait. Never mind. I did it on my own. There you go. It's hideous. They had the president never said, and who would if they were, I'm a serial molester. The president never said that. She's referring to the stuff that he said on the bus, which was locker room talk caught on a hot mic between him and another guy that were making each other laugh. But she's going to throw that in there and try to equate President Trump with Harvey Weinstein.
Kind of, action that is so sexist and misogynistic.
And this depends upon women coming forward and having the courage to come forward.
Right.
And yet in your book, the three women brought onto stage by Trump attacking your husband, and you kind of dismissed them. Was that the right thing to do? Are you sure about that?
Well, yes, because that had all been litigated. I mean, that was the subject of a huge, investigation, as you might recall, in the late 90s. And there were conclusions drawn, and that was clearly in the past. Okay.
This woman's evil. That wasn't clearly, and anybody, listen, I have great friends who swear by this woman. If you are going to sit here and say there's nothing wrong with what she's saying, you're crazy. You'll still be my friend, but you're crazy. This is a lying psychopath, no different than Harvey Weinstein. What she is saying in this couple of minutes is that Harvey Weinstein is very bad. Harvey Weinstein, a person that women have come out and said he attempted to rape me, he used coercion to get me up there, and then entrapment to not let me leave, that he fondled all these women are saying these different things, and he himself says, I've got a problem, I need to go to rehab. He himself, the one person that did admit that he's been doing things. She then turns around and takes the focus off of him, her buddy, and immediately puts it on a president that none of the women ever coming out, Weinstein paid a lot of these women, paid them off. In the Clinton case, a lot of these women were paid off. Donald Trump's never paid anybody off. There's never been any money paid to women. These women that came there and raised this ruckus with Gloria Allred and her daughter Lisa Bloom, who also handled Harvey Weinstein at the beginning of this. None of those things went forward. There was no proof, no allegations. President Trump didn't say that they're evil, vile people and try to destroy their lives. They just went away because there was no proof. But this, what she just said about her husband, is a vile, nasty lie. And now you start to see there's no reason to get angry. Just let it fall out. Let the truth fall out. Let the players expose themselves. And you can see how all this works if you take the emotion away from it. Don't listen to the trolls. Don't worry about the trolls that come on here and say all kinds of weird stuff. Don't worry about it. They're the same way. They're there for a reason to try to distract you and get you angry. Ignore them. Just don't even worry about it. Let it just be chaff that goes right on by, like when you're at a campfire and a piece of the fire comes up and floats off. Just let it go. Don't worry about those trolls. This is evil. And when you take the emotion away from it, you start to see it. She's a lying, divisive person who has deceived the country. Her husband was the same way. And when she's talking about what he did, which women have actually said that he raped them, and they've paid these women off, and she tried to ruin their lives, and she's saying, well, those things were litigated. Well, what does that mean? Look, folks, when you go to trial, you're either found not guilty or guilty. You're not found innocent. That's not the way the court system works. You're either found guilty or not guilty. So if they went to litigation and the person dropped the case because they were paid, they settled, that doesn't prove that Bill Clinton was not guilty. It doesn't prove that he was innocent. It means they paid off somebody.
But it is something that has to be taken seriously. As I say, for everyone, not just for those in entertainment right now.
Yeah. Folks, we got a problem in this country with that nonsense. But I hope you see, and the whole gist of this show tonight was not really to come on here and talk about any specific things that have been going on. I mean, there's a lot in the news. The president is going after Obamacare, and he's cutting subsidies, and I had to look up and actually get a grasp on what these are. I'm not the expert in this, but basically it's money that the government is giving these insurance companies, and they're going to cut that. Why not? Let's start there. People will get very motivated to fix things. He's also going after the Iran deal, and he decertified the Iran nuclear deal, slapped sanctions back on them, and is forcing Congress to act on this. That's one of the things that he's doing right. And again, if you take the emotion out of it, if you look at what's happening, you'll see that one of the things, the best thing that Donald Trump is doing is forcing those people to make decisions, those lifelong politicians that should be voted out of office. He's forcing them to work. Now, the only thing I'm going to say before we go to the truth zone here in just a minute is about the investigation in Vegas is that they need to shut their mouths, the investigators, until they get timelines right and all these things. But I'm kind of glad that they're doing this, because the reality is, folks, what you're starting to see is a police department that doesn't have their stuff together, and obviously they don't have proper relationships with these casinos. It took them too long to figure out where the shooting was happening. It took them too long to get in there. And now it's taken too long just to figure out the timeline, mostly because they don't have the working relationships that they should have. I'm sure they do have working relationships. They don't have the standard operating procedure set up that this is exactly what will happen. It's coming in and requesting and all this stuff in a soft target like this, that all this stuff should be set up to work like clockwork. It's not doing that. Next terrorist attack that ever happens there, it's going to be bigger and badder. Now that the bad guys have seen what they can do and how easy it is. So, what else did I say I was going to talk about tonight? The Clinton Lynch files are found. Hillary Clinton drops a stupid bomb on the BBC. That was that. And the New York Times, so far as I can tell, they get an attaboy. All right, I'm not expecting any great change in Hollywood. I'm not expecting people to go, we now see evil and we're not going to be that way. It's not going to happen. I don't expect for the New York Times to all of a sudden change their ways. That ain't going to happen. So let's go to the truth zone. And we're going to do the Friday Night Toast. Rico's asleep, so I'm not going to wake him up, because if he's asleep, you don't want to bother him. He's like an old man. And, yeah, let's go to the truth zone. Ready, get set, let's go. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. So Barry Morgenstein, I saw that you were listening in your car, but unfortunately I already told the story. You're going to have to go back to the beginning of the show and watch it, but it'll be worth it. It's about how I met JL today at the studio. So I'm going to send you off with a nice toast berry so you can listen to this in your car on your way home. So if you haven't gotten yourself something to drink, I hope you have more than one beer like I have. Let's raise a toast tonight. Let's raise a toast to this little itty bitty seed that's in the middle of nowhere. You see it right there, that little planet and that ray of light all by itself, where every single thing that's ever happened in the history of mankind has happened right there. Human beings have only ventured a small distance from that planet. So we'll raise a toast to our home, the place where my father is buried and my mom lives, the place where my dog Jessie, she sleeps in the ground with the rest of the animals that my mom had, is while Rico sleeps right here next to me. It all occurs on this earth. It makes things look and seem a lot closer. You know, maybe it's not the person that you don't like at work. The fact that there's people on the other side of the world that want to fight, it makes things seem a lot smaller. But yet, just like in SEAL training, just like in boot camp, or in police academy, or in medical school, going through law school, architecture school, I'm not going to forget you all, and any of these other programs where you're going to be mentored and build a skill, just like those, you have to go through a place of breaking down and proving. And that's what I look at this earth is our proving ground. It makes things look a lot smaller. It makes us look a lot more special. And it makes you realize that what happened in this universe to make it so vast, to make us so special, that it's by design. There's no doubt about it. And when you look at this news and you look at how salacious things are and you look at how it's presented, it becomes clearly evident that there are forces at work that are trying to guide you away from this clear thinking. It's not difficult. I tell you, when I showed up to Bud's, I knew that I would not quit. But I remember Wednesday night in Hell Week, sitting there laughing, and my friend Scott asked me, he goes, "What are you laughing about? Are you hallucinating?" We hadn't slept for 3 days. I just looked at him, I said, "Man, there is nothing they can do to me to make me quit. I know that now. I had the need for it before, but I know it now." We need to get to that point in this country. I can say the rest of the world, but I can only speak to the country that I know. We've got to get there, folks. We've got to stand together and let this anger and all this stuff go away, because when I sat there on Wednesday of Hell Week and I knew that I would not quit, it was an amazing time when all the anger and the stress and the sadness and the fear of being there was gone. And it was Wednesday night of Hell Week, probably one of the hardest things I ever did in my life, but I had clarity. That's where we need to go. Let's raise a toast. Here's to the planet that we live on and the people that live on it. Let's do this. I'm Jonathan Gillum. Rico's asleep on the floor over there. I'll see you all on Monday, of course, unless there's breaking news. Remember, wherever you see this face, the truth has arrived. Let's do this. God bless you. Have a great Friday night. Don't forget to order my book, Sheep No More, which I did not put up here like a ding-dong. There it is, right in front of my face. Don't forget to go order that. Pre-order it. It's back up. It went way down. It's way back up now. We're #1 in 2 categories, including violence in society. In large part, excuse me one second. In large part because of you all spreading the word and pre-ordering this book. Like I talked about yesterday, the GoFundMe page, you guys help fund this show. $50 is going to get you a signed copy of the book. Somehow, some way, we're going to get those to you. Jim DeLong is going to help me with that. And there's a reason why this book is growing, and it's not even out until December. People are starting to realize, I want to be empowered. I don't want to be the person that's shot laying on the ground. I want to have a plan, and that's what this book is all about. Not just about how to survive attacks. The reality is, I'm teaching people through that medium how to become aware. That's the truth. We all have our part to do, folks. You have to develop the talents that you're given, and you have to go out and seek the skills that you were born to cultivate. We're driven towards certain things. Don't just be idle. I'm Jonathan Gillum again. Great having you guys. Thank you for joining me on a Friday night. Let's get these numbers back up. And I'll see you on Friday on The Experts. As always, the truth has arrived. Peace! How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.